So we've already talked about missiles, we've already talked about how they have developed them, and there's a lot of back-engineered, decades-long developed missiles that they've got as the West say, as a deterrent, a local deterrent there. They're allowed to have as a defence, a means to defence. But Israel are not seeing it the same way because of certain factors, and we're going to look more into them. But this is one of the factors that we're going to start diving into here. So there's been quite a technological shift leading up to 2026, really, really recent. So, and this is one of the reasons why we think maybe Israel are deciding to move forward sooner rather than later here. They've moved from liquid fuel missiles recently to solid fuel missiles. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is actually huge.
Yeah, it's causing a lot more in the military to be a little bit more panicked about this situation. So let's look into this. A liquid fuel missile, the fuel and the oxidizer, they are highly volatile, they're corrosive. You can't store them inside the missile for long periods of time because basically the volatile liquids inside eat the missile from the inside out. So basically the missile just sits there empty most of the time. And when you want to fire it, what you got to do is you got to roll it out onto a launch pad, and then you got to bring in these massive convoys of trucks with hoses and pump this highly explosive liquid into the rocket. And that takes time. It takes hours. Sometimes it takes half a day. And more importantly, if you're tracking one of these from a satellite, it's like turning a giant sign on your head saying shoot me, because it takes ages to prepare a liquid fuel missile. You see the convoy movement, you see the heat signatures of this fueling equipment, you intercept the radio chatter. It gives you great, talking about strategic depth, it gives you great temporal strategic depth, I suppose. You've got time to sound the sirens, you've got time to warn your civilian public to get into the shelters, and you can even launch a preemptive strike to destroy the missile in the launch pad before it even takes off. And legally you can do that too, because that does pose a present danger to you because of no one's got a missile on a launcher being pumped full of corrosive material that doesn't last long if they're not going to shoot the thing, Yeah, so it buys you a lot of time. But we are seeing a move, and do you want to talk about the move?
Yeah, so solid fuel missiles, they erase that time window completely. Like the propellant, they cast it directly into the casing of the missile at the factory. So basically it's already in there, it's stable, it's basically ends up like a huge sophisticated firework that you can stick on the shelf. It's pre-packaged, pre-fueled, ready to be launched at a moment's notice. So all you have to do is store it in subterranean tunnels or even on mobile launchers ready to go. You just take it out, raise it, you fire it. And that warning window disappears. I mean, it's under 15 minutes. If they get their act together, it's under 15 minutes. And by that time, a satellite might detect maybe the thermal bloom of the launch. But by then, the missile's already in the air. And from an Israeli perspective, factoring in the flight time from Iran to Tel Aviv is dropping the decision-making time to almost zero.
So you can no longer rely on seeing the punch coming, before it's coming to hit you. Quick side alley here. Sorry, I don't want to take us off track. Are these the new these new solid fuel missiles? Are they the ones we're seeing, or are we seeing the old ones?
I don't know. I'd imagine they're using more the newer ones. I don't know for sure, but maybe our experience kind of points that way, because do you remember we were just saying to each other, where was the warning? They're just coming faster now. And I remember the Homefront app, it wasn't always giving that same kind of buffer time. It usually gives a buffer first. It says a missile launch, and you've got about 10 minutes maybe. But yeah, I remember we were in the garden having coffee, and the interceptions suddenly started happening above our head. It's like, we're like, oh right, this is now then. So we just dropped everything and ran to the shelter. It just felt like the gap between warning and impact had really shrunk sometimes. And I don't know whether that's because they're using this new technology. But hey, it definitely did feel like that.
Yeah, no, well, it's good to interject there because that's on the ground reality. So let's go back to the Blackboard and look at the analogy here. So the lines Israel are drawing, the conclusions, and let me make sure I'm synthesizing this correctly. Israel writes on the board missiles, okay? And the fact they just keep building more of them, just that fact in itself, because they're under heavy sanctions, they're really, really economically squeezed, and they're still pouring billions into missile development.
Yeah, for Israel, they've been asking that real existential question, what does that mean? And because you don't take that kind of economic hits for something secondary, and remember the sanctions, they've been going on for years. Just to put it in perspective, sanctions on Iran, 45 years, decades of economic pressure. Their currency's been hit, their growth has been held back, they've had isolation, and yet through all of that, they're still pouring money into this missile program. And not just a bit either. This is one of the biggest stockpiles in the region. And you kind of have to ask the question, is this really just defense? And then when you look at Hamas and when you look at Hezbollah, we've seen this before. They didn't exactly hide it, but they didn't spell it out either. It's more like, we've got more than you think. And eventually, we saw it. They used it.
Yeah, and sorry, just to say that the Beirut thing, we're talking about Beirut because it's one of those kind of things that stick with you.
Oh yeah, that massive explosion. Goodness me, yeah. 2010? I don't know when that was. It wasn't that long ago, was it?
No. Anyway, it was a massive explosion, wasn't it? It's actually one of the biggest non-nuclear explosions ever. And the blast, it was felt like 200 kilometers away. It left a huge crater. And sadly, 200 people were killed. 6,000 more people were injured, and like 300,000 people lost their homes. So it's massive. And to give it some scale, it was basically about 5 to 10% of the Hiroshima atomic bomb. So not nuclear, but still massive. And but the official line was it was just 2,000 odd, maybe more, tons of ammonium nitrate that was like sitting there for years, and it was really, really stored in a bad way, and it went up, which is mad in itself. Like that amount stored in the city of volatile ammonium nitrate, you got to start asking questions.
Yeah, and that's the shocking bit. It's basically fertilizer, but in that quantity, and it had just been left there. It was down to, they say, paperwork issues, down to corruption. No one's taking responsibility. But then you start hearing the threads that this isn't just a one-off. And there have been reports over years of ammonium nitrate being stockpiled in different places. Sometimes it's actually linked back to the Hezbollah networks. These caches of this stuff turning up in Europe, in Cyprus, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so basically what we're saying really is that this looks like another stockpile, and you'll never find out. Things that can't be said are never heard. This is part of the Blackboard. You've got to start asking, what is going on here? It doesn't look good from the perspective of the strategic Blackboard that we are trying to balance the maths on.
And if you're trying to find out what A means, A equals, sometimes mathematically it's pretty obvious what A is going to equal.
I thought you weren't good at maths.
I used to love algebra.
Well, I'm happy for you, because I don't think that was the same sentiment with me. Anyway, back to the script. Iran have got this massive stockpile of missiles, and the missiles, they're not just weapons, they're signals. Signals of intent for Israel. And it kind of makes you wonder what they're ultimately being built to carry. That's the question we believe Israel is asking.
You mean nuclear intent, nuclear payload?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the Israeli deduction, we think. And then you connect the other factors, and it really starts stacking up, which brings us to the second fact on the Blackboard here, the rhetoric